would take it, you know, there would be cut his neck or whatever, let all the blood come out. Then they would roast it, okay, and it would be an offering. Now that sacrifice was the atonement for your sins. Here's the difference, though, or here's the big thing. It was the temporary atonement for your sins. It was a covering that only happened or took precedence for X period of time, which is why you needed to go back again and go, oh, the last 6 months were horrible. I cheated Noel, I beat up Wade, and I robbed from Sandy, I did all these things. More sin, here's my lamb for the last 3 months. And not even to mention the things I thought about, right? And then that lamb was taken as a sacrifice, and atonement was paid from the last time you were there up until today. Now what's the only problem with that system? Animals suffer, okay. If you die before your last atonement, I'm thinking even sooner than that, or more immediate. What's that? Yeah, you never have to change lifestyle-wise. I don't, because I'll just come back and make an offering. But let's just here's. I'm just going to act this out real quick. Here's my little lamb. What happens right when I'm walking out? Yeah, I'm going to sin again. Now I could just get another lamb and turn around. I'm never going to leave the courtyard of the temple, because I'm just going to be doing, well, I just sinned again. I just sinned again. Because I'm thinking, I'm living, I'm breathing, I'm sinning, I'm a sinner. So the whole concept was to be temporary. It was, you make this sacrifice, it atones you until the next time. Now, why was it a temporary sacrifice? Yes, because we're waiting for, or they were waiting, we've already had it, but they were waiting for the permanent atoning sacrifice, which is why Jesus is the atonement for all of our sins. He covers everything because he was perfect. Notice, the lamb as close to perfect as possible. Good question. You could bring a goat, or you can bring a bird, or it depends. Depending on how much money you have to buy an animal that would be an appropriate sacrifice. Again, think of that within the sacrificial system. If I only had 3 cents to buy a dove, and Wade had $100 to buy a goat, is this sacrifice any better than mine? No. Both of our sacrifices were limited in what they could do. Only Jesus, perfect, flawless, God as man, could be a permanent atonement for us. The temple system, the sacrificial system, was supposed to show everyone this. That's what God was trying to teach everyone through this. This is temporary. You're waiting for the permanent, one true lamb. You're waiting for the one who can not only cover your sins from 6 months to 6 months, or Passover to Passover, but before you existed, until after you die. That's what Jesus does. Now, one of the perks of being a temple priest was we were allowed to, while it's on that rotisserie, we were allowed to come by with your sweet knife, cut a little piece off, and that was your portion. You were able to take a little bit off, and that was your meal. Nothing wrong with that. God provided for that, because one of the things about the Levites, the priests, was they weren't paid, so to speak. The people took care of them. They weren't allowed to go out and have regular jobs. So the people would go, here's some housing for you. Here's food for you. Here's this. The people were supposed to provide for their leader. No different than today. You guys are supposed to provide for your pastor. It's no difference. The only difference is that instead of coming by my house with a big bucket of grain, which would be welcome, I have no problem with that. In our society, we use cash and checks and credit cards, and we have a monetary system. But it was the exact same principle. So the people were able to, like I said, they would provide directly for their priests, and they were allowed to take a little bit of food off. Now what's the problem? That lamb. Have you guys ever had really good, I'm talking really good, you have, I know, right? Middle East is different, a little farther east is. Lamb cooked over an open fire, oh, there's nothing better. It is, first of all, the smell is incredible. It's just delicious, and I'm sorry if anyone's a vegetarian. But, is anyone a vegetarian here? All right. It is the most incredible smelling, delicious tasting thing. So what happens is the priest would go, cut off a little piece, eat it, and you know it was really good. And another one, and another one, and another one. And before you knew it, we had a group of priests. It was like a scene right out of Henry VIII, you know, with the big turkey leg and stuff like that. They got like lamb, one here, and you know, a little dove. Could you roast a dove? Does anyone want chip? Okay, a dove here, a quail there, and they're just feasting on this stuff that's supposed to be burnt and sacrificed up to God. They are taking what is God's and feeding themselves. They're living off of that, abusing it, taking advantage of these perks. Think about it. They were robbing God of a sacrifice that was being made to him to cover the sins of his people. So imagine it, okay? You guys are working tirelessly. Everyone's working 60, 70 hours a week. Generous as possible. That offering basket every week is overflowing. And then I would just walk up to it and go, well, I've got this bill, this bill, this bill, and I'm going to take that. But I really want this, so I'm going to have to take a little more, add a little more, add a little more, add a little more. And at the end, I'm just turning it over and going, okay, God, that's yours. The priests were robbing God of what was his. And the worst part about it was they were doing it by taking advantage of the people that God had entrusted them to. It is just insult after insult after insult. Verse 9. And it shall be like people, like priests. I will punish them for their ways. So, again, God's expanding on this punishment. He's saying, you know how you're taking advantage of all these people? You're abusing them, you're mistreating them. Instead of caring for them the way it was intended to, you're robbing from them. You're robbing from me. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to punish you the same way you punish them. How you've stolen from them, I'm taking from you. How you have not filled their spiritual life, which was their priority, I'm not allowing you and your spiritual life to be fulfilled. I'm withdrawing myself from you. I'm taking away from you what you should be getting and then in turn giving out. You're not going to have that anymore. Now remember that there's nothing more a priest would want than to have their own spiritual life filled so that they can then pour it out to everyone else. Instead, God's going, you're not doing that, I'm not giving you me. You want punishment? You want shame? I'm taking myself away from you. And I've talked to you guys about this before. Oh no.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's good. You'll just play because I know you're good. I've talked to you guys about this before. God deals with us one of two ways. Actively and which do we want? Active, yes. If I would equate it to a parent to a child, if I tell Joelle you have one of two choices. I'm going to spank you once, one swat, just one, or 4 weeks, I'm going to act like you don't exist. I'm going to literally say, Joelle, eat anything you want, go in and out of the house anytime you want, don't go to school, you're free to literally do whatever you want. Now, which is going to be more attractive to us? The second one. Which is more detrimental to us? The one who hasn't been spanked for 10 years in spankings. Yeah, the one that's more detrimental to us is number 2. God removing himself from our lives. Pray that never ever happens to you. Pray that if you fall into sin, God deals with you immediately, right away. Because you don't want to be waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and nothing happens. That's where the priests are. God's literally saying, in the same way that you've withdrawn from the people I've entrusted you, I'm punishing you in the same manner. They shall eat, verse 10, but not be satisfied. They shall play the whore, but not multiply, because they have forsaken the Lord to cherish whoredom, wine, and new wine, which take away understanding. again, we see this process again. Charges, violations, punishment, right? God is specifically talking about the leaders who are not leading the people. He's talking about the leaders who are not doing the job that God has given them to. And he's saying, literally, wait till I get my hands on you. Again, parents, you guys know that feeling? You get that call, maybe you're at work, hard at work, out on the mission field. You don't got time for nonsense, and you get that call from the teacher at school. I need you to come here right away. Like you're like, I got to drop everything to come back. And I'll tell you guys a real quick story. Tony Evans is a pastor in Dallas. Love this guy. He's awesome. If any of you guys ever got a chance to hear him, great, fantastic. He comes to Moody all the time. He tells a story about when he was a kid. He got into a fight at school. And his dad was a blue-collar worker, kind of, you know, at the time probably making like $3 an hour. Hard work, back-breaking work. He gets into a fight at school. The principal's like, I got to call your father. And no kid ever wants to hear that. I got to call your father, because now you're in trouble with the principal, and then dad's got to come, and now you're in trouble with him. Which is why moms always use that. You're going to have to deal with your father about that, because now there's that torment of waiting until the dad shows up. So he calls his dad. His father had to, this is back in the day when, you know, I'm sure there wasn't excellent worker rules. Dad has to punch out of work, drive over, so now this is costing dad money. And I'm guessing that dad wasn't making a ton of money because he was like a regular, just blue-collar worker guy. Dad's got to drive all the way over to school, go sit in the principal's office. That embarrassing moment when the principal has to lecture you about how your kid can't behave. Anyone? You know my pain? It's awful. Yeah? You've had that happen, Lisa?
Of course.
That principal says, I really wish your child had behaved a little better. And you're like, what you're literally saying to me is, I'm a horrible parent, I can't keep my kid in line, all those things. So the principal tells this to Tony Evans' dad. Tony Evans' dad says, you know what, I am really sorry. I want to apologize to you that my son has inconvenienced you. And I can assure you, you will never, ever call me again about my son's behavior. Tony Evans says that moment, he wished he could die. Because he was literally like, what awaits me on the ride home till we get home? How bad is it going to be? And he said, you know what, I learned a lesson that day at home. And my dad was never called again by the principal. Because he got, you know, old-fashioned, old school from the South, butt whipping. And he was literally like, oh, don't worry about it. It'll never happen again. That's what we want. I know it sounds crazy. When we're dealing with God and we screw up, we want God to literally go, I'm picking you up and I'm going to shake you. I'm not just going to ignore you and let you do whatever you want. We don't ever want that. So these priests are due for their punishment. And here it goes, verse 10. I know I read it, but I'm going to read it again. They shall eat, but not be satisfied. God is specifically talking about the sin offerings that they're abusing. He's specifically talking about their desire to have more. He's literally saying that they're going to eat these sin offerings, they're going to indulge, and you know what? It's never going to satisfy them. They are going to get wealthy, and they're going to have a greater want and desire for money, and they're never going to have enough. I'm going to give them power. I'm going to allow it to happen, and it's never going to satisfy them. We see this all the time here. We all deal with this. And I'm curious, how many of you guys, honestly, ask yourselves, when is enough enough? That's what we're, this culture that we're in, that's the war that we're against. It is never enough. How much money does it take? I need more. How much money do you need to make every year? I need to make more. It's really simple. Ask yourselves, when will I be satisfied? Most of us have jobs that we probably don't like very much, except for me. I love my job. Most of us have jobs that we really don't care for. I want someone to be honest. So just one person, raise your hand. Whoever doesn't have a job that they don't really like. I want to see if they'll be a willing guinea pig.
Maybe they like their job.
No, they hate it. They don't like it. Jess, okay, thank you. Let me ask you, and I want you to really, 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 really